Okay, hey everybody, welcome to the stream. I'm Zoe FPV, and today we're going to try to do something that only one other pilot, I think, has tried to do before. But we're doing it a little differently today, and yeah, so we're going to do a 24-hour live stream, going 24 hours long. That's going to be quite the challenge for me. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it, but I'm going to try. So the first thing up on the stream today is the RaGGe WBX build, Rotor edition. We'll be getting to that in just about an hour. This first kind of opening for the stream is just us hanging out, making sure everything is working and that you can hear me and that stuff is happening. This is my first time live streaming to YouTube in about a year. For those fans that know me, you know that I started out with the Dronalicious show last year, and it kind of fell off of the face of the earth.
Said, wow, 24H.
Yeah, 24 hours. It's going to be quite the ride. And as you can hear, I actually have a robot to announce what you're saying on stream. So chat away and interact with me so I can interact with you. That's half the magic of this whole thing. The robot announcer will be turned on for most of the stream. When I get into the bulk of this build, I'm going to end up turning it off just so I can focus on getting this done as efficiently and as smoothly as possible. After that, we'll have about an hour and a half to shoot the shit.
Skyround FPV said, fun.
It's going to be a lot of
Colin
fun.
Pinard said, brew some coffee.
Oh, I've got a lot of coffee already. This is the biggest cup of coffee I've ever brewed. I'm already 1 cup of coffee in today, so it's going to be a long ride. And on top of that, Antonio, a fan and friend of mine I met, he's going to actually drop by tomorrow morning with coffee. He heard I was going to be doing a 24-hour stream, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to go give Zoe some coffee.
Snarky Josh said, awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I am like so looking forward to this. So for those that don't know, I've put about a good month or so into this whole live streaming setup.
Carborough_Chapel Hill FPV said, saw the crash and field burn. How did that turn out?
That actually turned out fine. There was, so the FAA signed off on that event.
John Burns said, craziness.
Yeah, so the FAA signed off on that event. They ended up giving me, so the whole event had a UAS safety team at the FAA before the burning down signed off on it.
Simaz FPVUF said, coffee's all round. Hey Zoe, was talking about.
So I can actually turn that, I might just mute that so I can do a story. So if I cut you off, I will come back to you. So the story with the whole burning down a field. So I need to back up and give some context to this. This was X-Class Race 4 of Season 1, the final race of the season. The final, and this was going into the finals. I had qualified number 2 in the day, and I was in the number 2 mains against a really fast pilot. I was thinking, okay, I want to win. I want to push it. This is the finals. Let's go big or go home. I put, actually, no, I was just using 6-cell. I wasn't even going 8-cell at that point. I had an old school 6-cell battery on it. And we were racing the giant X-Class machines, right? Going around the field, I end up going into one of the chicanes. Well, as I was going into that, one of the ESCs failed, hit the ground, it caught fire, and ended up burning down 2 acres of field. Cool thing is, this was at a UAV testing center. So they had an AMA field. It was AMA backed. I was an AMA pilot at the event. It was an AMA event under an AMA club, under actually 3 different AMA clubs. There was multiple levels to it. At the end of the day, nobody, I was forefront. I talked to the fire department and the police, and they did their report. No charges or anything were filed against me. No, as in we didn't have to pay anything. It was all covered by the state or city of Berkeley. And yeah, there was no insurance claim. Like they claimed 0 damage to the field. They were actually even planning on using controlled burn on the field to get rid of all the grass anyways. So some say as a joke that I did them a favor, but a fire is really no joking matter, even though I had a little bit of fun after the burn was under control. And yeah, it was quite exhilarating. I got pretty jittery after flying that race. Like I was kind of scared to get back on the horse, so to speak, and it took me a long time to get comfortable with, like a long time. And it took me a couple months. Like I had a few things that happened that really kind of soured my winter. And it's only been the last month that I've been rallying and actually kind of trying to get my thumbs all warmed up and having some fun. So yeah, the event was fine. I don't think we'll be asked back to the UAV testing center again, but pending that, I think everything went off okay. I mean, the FAA knows about it. They did their own investigation. The fire department did their own investigation, and everything was okay. I mean, this is why I liked doing it by the books. When we do giant drone racing in a way that makes it, you know, safe, then it's safe even under the worst conditions, like lighting a fire onto the field. But yeah, and so then I kind of just took a break after that, and for the longest time, there's about a month where I didn't fly, and that was the longest period I haven't flown in years. Like, I was just over everything. Like, the hobby, like, industry was going meh. So yeah, anyways, let me turn the chat back on so you can hear me. There we go.
Simaz FPVUF said, "Yo ramble Ron."
So yeah, thank you all for joining me in the chat room. It's really awesome that I actually have like 30 people watching. On Twitch at max, when I was testing this whole setup over the month or so that I was doing this.
Josh said, "One of the smaller fires California has seen this year. Don't worry."
Dude, like when the firefighters showed up, like they saw the fire and they were like, okay. Like they had zero they just didn't care. They were like, well, it's on fire. They like nonchalantly walked over to it. And when I realized the firefighters were like chill about it, then I became chill about it. And then when it was under control, it was like, that was awesome.
There will be more peeps coming in droves. Smiley face. Smiley face.
We'll see. It's going to be a long stream. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be able to successfully entertain you all the entire time. And that being said, I do have some cool stuff lined up to keep you entertained. This is just me talking to you, getting stuff started, and getting me going. It's going to be a long 24 hours. So the first build project, and let me show you kind of what I actually have working on right now.
Ramble Ron.
Oh, no, I just closed a window.
You can do it.
I just closed my Chrome window. Come back to me, Chrome.
Pleasure Tech.
Come back to me.
Said, LOL, Deb Mug. Simaz FPVUF. Said, I'll move from coffee to beer after lunch, LOL.
I think I'm going to be sticking with coffee. This stream could be renamed, How Many Cups of Coffee Does It Take to Kill Zoe FPV? Because that's about the only way I'm going to stay up through the night. And I'm also going to try to, like, gauge my coffee levels, so by the time the stream's over, I'm not too wired, and I can go to bed. We'll see. So my last coffee in the morning I'm planning to be, for about 8 a.m., 9 a.m. So yeah, I just accidentally closed a bunch of my windows. Let me show you my desktop so you can see what I'm working with right now.
Hi.
Hey, Thomas. Welcome to the stream. Like, seriously, guys, I'm stoked that I have so many of you on.
Commando FPV said, I'm just listening. I can't watch because I'm climbing up a cell phone tower working.
That is epic. That's really cool. Thank you for actually listening to me while you're doing something so cool. Wow. Okay. That gives me perspective on the world right now. Yeah, and I've got to say, I've got a lot of international viewers, so I'm expecting the stream to really change as time goes on. So cool, I've got my Facebooks reopened. I need to open up my Google Drive.
Simas FPVUF.
Unruly Rotor said, I have been wanting to do 3D since I started, but money has been a factor. Just having a normal flying quad in the air was enough to worry about for a while.
Said. Sick as Commando FPV.
So the real fun is going to start at 1 p.m. This is really just testing the whole system. So if I get a little quiet, don't worry, it'll get less quiet very, very soon.
Jesse Perez said, Hi Zoe, big fan. Finally built my first drone this summer.
That's so cool. Welcome to the club.
FPV Freaky said, I feel like going commando, face with tears of joy, face with tears of joy, face with tears of joy.
Well, the cool thing with this stream is you could go commando and I wouldn't know, right? I mean, you could be talking to me completely naked and I'd have no idea. But I might have an idea if you join me in the Google Chats hangout later, which I will have up on the screen shortly. So I have a bunch of build guides and stuff. Like I prepped for this stream. Like there has been a bit of work that's gone into making this work today. So bear with me as I open up all these windows and I get stuff working. So the first build we have is the Rotor Riot RaGGe edition.
FPV said, Zoe.
Oh,
Pleasure Tech
I was hoping that's going to be really long.
Said, I work from home. Sometimes wear a gizmo on sea doing important database work.
That's cool.
Said, RaGGe FPV, I hate pigs. Stop spamming caps warning. RaGGe FPV. Said, cool. Like 0x. Said, oh he. Eastside Tony. Said, yo yo yo, I will be there with the mocha early. Random FPV said, stop lying Travis. RaGGe FPV said, oops haha sorry Lady V.
This is going to be interesting having the stream bot going and having all of you in chat popping up. Wow, this is going to be really interesting. I can see this getting really interesting later on tonight when things get freaky naughty. So let me give you a
RaGGe FPV
view of everything.
Said, haha I like it here already. Random FPV said, Lady V way AAA.
Hey Random, welcome
Commando
to the stream.
FPV said, what's up Random? Eastside Tony said, I can hear my...
So I'm going to give you a bit of a look at the stream. I'm going to try to get used to swapping between cutting off the chat and turning it back on. So if I turn it off and you're trying to say something and you don't hear yourself and you want to hear yourself, just wait a moment. So that's really one of the biggest things that I have to get used to with the whole streaming setup is all the different doodads. I really feel like a one-man band, you know, I've got like a giant drum in the middle, a trumpet, trombone, all that crazy stuff, and I'm clicking and clacking on all the things to make it work. So you see right now my desktop. This is the command center right in front of me, just literally right in front of me. And I keep looking to the wrong camera. I'm looking at this camera now. See, that's the other thing. I have 3 cameras set up. So let me show you those camera setups. So I have the presentation camera. This is the one where I'm just looking like me to you, and you're seeing just me. This is kind of for when I'm like doing really kind of nice close-ups, me in the background, explaining to you some stuff, doing stuff. That camera is on a flexible arm so I can move it around. And then we have what I like as the workbench setup. This is currently my workbench and what we're going to be working on today. As you see, I've got the RaGGe build and everything lined up. Quite a lot of cool stuff. It's really, really cool to have this kind of streaming set up and have the power to move from one camera to the other. For example, the webcam setup, this is its own dedicated camera that follows my face around. So when I'm in the presentation setup, it's using its own dedicated camera that is framed. That allows kind of more of a high quality production values, but only if I can get used to switching between the two and doing stuff like that. And then going back to the bench. And then going back to here. Yeah, you see? So all of these things are mapped to my mouse. So I can change between 3 of the views with my thumb right here. And that allows me to hopefully get used to easily switching between all of them and doing, you know, high production values on the spot. The whole reason I built this setup was so I could produce more content. I really like creating build videos and how-tos and stuff, but for me, I like to spend a lot of time filming. And it takes a lot of my time to set up shots and to do all of the work. And realistically, I realized, you know what? I could set up a live streaming studio or just really a studio to do all this awesome stuff in. And that's what I've done. So this is the culmination of a month. To the few of you that have been following me on twitch.tv/dronelicious, that's where I've been doing all the testing. Like, I've done 2 weeks now of testing of the streaming setup to see if it's going to work. And that's been absolutely imperative to making sure that this is even good enough to go onto YouTube. On Twitch, my audience is literally 100 times smaller than it is on YouTube. So just the fact that I have 33 people watching the intro to the 24-hour stream is just God-smacking to me right now. So thank you for joining me on this adventure. And thank you for indulging me on showing you my setup. I mean, it's really cool to be able to share that with you. And it's one of the things that I think other people can get, you know, info from. I know a lot of people in the DeadBand group have their own streaming setups. And I kind of tried to forge my own path. So going into that, I want to show you, well, okay, so I have 2 microphones. We have the Samson mic. This is my main one for the bench. This picks up all of the main audio. And then I have a headset, which I'll be using for the Google Hangouts. The quality on this is not all that great. The quality on the Samson Meteor mic is really good. And it's actually kind of nice. It's almost ASMR-y, if you know what that means. Because I can, like, tap on the bench or, like, the click-clacks of the motors. Like, all that's picked up on the audio. And I think it makes a big difference in the production quality of the show. So, yeah. I like I said, I've spent a lot of time trying to dial things in. And this is the ultimate, like, I ordered parts for this starting in December. So this has been a long time coming for this stream. So I appreciate you all being a part of it and giving me feedback and all that good stuff. Wow, I just missed a lot of people in chat. Hey, let me turn back on the chat here so y'all can be a part of it. Aretha is the queen of the soul, by far, hands down. You're the queen of drone. Love how you fly.
Ron said, "What camera are you using?"
Great question.
Tornado Girl FPV.
So, I'm using a GS920 camera for the presentation cam and the workbench cam. And then I'm using a C270 camera for the desktop. And the desktop monitor that I have it on actually swivels around to my couch and my bed. So when I play Liftoff and stuff, I just swivel the monitor around and I use the same camera for that. It's a really slick setup and it's taken me a lot of time to dial in and get ready.
Said, "Have you talked to Squishy? He was one of the flight directors. I called him Tower as he was the last word for takeoff, at Cal Expo. He has an interesting post in FPV Lab.
I know Squishy. We've talked, and more like we've argued. Like I mean, not every time I talk to Squishy it turns into an argument, but we always get in a heated debate, and it's, yeah, it's actually a C920. The GS 920s I was thinking are a different thing. I got that mixed up. So yeah, the flight, Squishy, he was one of the flight directors for Nationals 2015, and he's one of the locals in NorCal FPV group. I'm not sure if I've seen the post you're referring to, Boxhead. But yeah, he's very vocal, and he's very unsugar-coated. He just says it like he sees it, even if it's a little dickish. But I kind of appreciate the fact he's willing to speak his mind on that level. And so yeah, most of the, like, literally the first time me and Squishy talked, I was yelling at him, and he was yelling at me during Nationals 2015 after it was over. We, like, got into a massive argument for, like, a good half an hour. And, I don't know, we later on kind of became friends-ish, you know? Like, we don't hang out or anything, but, like, you know, he's always been fairly supportive of what I do. So I've been like, cool, thanks. And I do appreciate what he says, even if he's a dick when he says it. Hey, welcome from the UK, Jira Plays.
Tough Love said, are you sponsored by anyone?
That's a great question. So, sponsorships work in interesting ways. I put my entire sponsorship document up publicly on my Patreon page. So my Patreons and the public can know fully who I'm sponsored by. Airviews help send me to events. They help with some of the equipment costs, but it's not much, and it doesn't pay for everything, and quite honestly, I end up putting way more into it than I get out of it. As far as equipment sponsorships, I am currently off contract with everybody. I will review parts. I like working with people. I still work with a lot of different companies, but as far as like direct sponsorships and, you know, actual contracts, not many. That being said, I am going to be renewing my tattoo contract and staying on as a tattoo team pilot after I tested the batteries against the China lines. There was so much hype around the China lines. I wanted to try them out during my off-contract time just to see what they were, because I was honestly thinking about jumping over sponsorship to them. And after I tested the batteries, I was like, they're heavier and they're not as punchy. And for me, that was like a twofold, like, no. And the biggest issue of all is that the battery does not even physically fit onto my 3D setup. So I can't even test it in 3D the way I want to. And I couldn't do that. So yeah, turning back chat on. Hey, Eric Burns. Hey, Skoden. Hey, Marvin. Yeah! So, Skoden, it's kind of hard to read here. I met Marvin in Colorado during the DreamHack event.
Said, how can one like myself review contents cause I'm a daily flyer and trying to expand my skills?
That's a great question. I started flying pretty much daily. I mean, I didn't start out with sponsorships. I started out as a regular pilot. Like, my first race that I went to, I had 0 sponsorships too. And I showed up as like a dark horse. Nobody knew of me. I had been training for a month for the event. And I ended up kicking butt with a hexacopter that I built while stuck in a hospital. And recovering from surgeries. So it's really one of those things that, because I was able to do some cool stuff and prove myself to the industry, so to speak, that they would sponsor some gear to me, and then it's kind of like a reciprocating thing. The biggest thing I can say to do is review the gear that you do have, and just start doing that. I mean, it's really one of those things that doesn't take a whole bunch of cash to really get into and to do. And if you do it well, you know, reviewers or people that have product that want, you know, someone to make a video on, like that, they're out there. Like, people need that from others in the community. So it's something I encourage everyone to really start doing, because, I mean, there's not a lot of info. Like, I was looking up info on, like, an unboxing of the KISS flight controller and ESCs, and I couldn't find an unboxing video. And I was able to film one in a few minutes, and I'll probably be releasing it soon. But other people have, you know, their impression videos and stuff, but there's no proper review video for it. There's, you know, this is what I did with it, this is how to set it up, but there's not, you know, there's still niches in the market for people to make content. Anyways.
Shootin FPV said, just ordered a few more Tata 4s 1375C. Those are great all-around bats.
Yeah, and the non-RLI batteries aren't all that super expensive.
Hi Zoe.
Hey Chris. Welcome to the stream. Hey Stephanie. Hey Hot Dog. I'm going through the chat. Hey Square. Hey Freaky. Hey Pleasure Tech. Yeah. No, thank you all for joining me on the stream today. We're just getting started. Almost a half an hour into 24 hours of streaming. So we've got a long ways to go today. Let me get a little more comfortable. There we go. That's better.
Volatronics said, at random FPV today a military copter flew 400 or 500 feet in the valley. Pissed me off.
That's crazy.
The Bean.
Hey Bean. So my next project, at least for the live stream, is going to be putting this RaGGe WBX together. And let me kind of go through how we're going to do that project and how it's going to go down today, because there's been a lot of prep that has gone into this first project. So one of the biggest things is you'll see, ta-da, the workbench. We have all of the ingredients for our quadcopter recipe ready to go, pre-tinned, pre-soldered, all situated for this build stream. This will make it super easy to go through and very, very smooth. So the whole idea for this first one is essentially to build it as quickly as possible, to go through all the steps, and to work through it would work through all of the... I'm like reading chat and realize I can't do that and explain. So if I ignore chat, I'm sorry. But it's going to be a combination of me doing something, going to chat, going back. It's going to be exciting and different. But essentially, I wanted to turn building drones into a cooking show. So I have the frame ingredients in my measuring cup. I have the motors. We have the 2306 2450 kV hype train motors from Rotor Riot. We've got the Wraith 35 amp BL Heli 32 ESCs. We have the Dice F4 Pro V2 flight controller. We've got a Team Black Sheep Unify HV Pro. We've got a Rotor Riot Runcam Swift 2. And we've got ourselves a Crossfire Micro receiver. And we have a Micro TX for the transmitter. This is a very premium build today. Like, this is super premium. And most of these parts have been sponsored by RaGGe for this. And we've been working on a frame, or he's been working on a frame with Rotor Riot for a while. And I've been flying his WBX for a while, and I love this frame. Like, this frame is... I mean, it's really hard to describe how much I love this frame. It's durable. I flew my original RaGGe for over a year. Let me grab it for you all real quick. My bag of equipment. So I built this one out recently. This is an exact copy of the original RaGGe WBX. I had given away to Angela after her equipment was stolen. And this is one of my favorite builds. It's durable, it protects the motors, it makes it really, really...
IEE is bits for the build.
It makes it really awesome. Yeah, so this frame is HDPE plastic. A lot of people think it's 3D printed, but no, this is HDPE. It's a whole different kind of thing. You'll see like cutting boards made out of this. So it's a little, I don't know, when people first see it, they think it's a toy. And I quite understand people's views on it and why they think it's not, I don't know, as cool as a carbon fiber frame. I mean, quite honestly, this is not as cool looking as the carbon fiber quad. This looks like a toy. But instead of breaking, the arms bend. Instead of shattering, it ends up just smudging or like deforming. The camera cage is really durable. The motor mounts, the motors are actually protected, right? So when you crash, the actual likelihood of you damaging a motor in a crash is significantly less than a lot of the carbon fiber frames. The weight on this is only about 20 to 30 grams more than a traditional quadcopter. And with the V2 revisions that Thomas is doing to the frame, it should bring it down to the same weight that you'd expect from a regular 5-inch build. So that is one of the reasons why I love the RaGGe. It's durable, it's flight tested. I've won races with it. I've gone week after week into a parking garage and crashed it repeatedly just for it to laugh it off and continue on. And it makes flying enjoyable. When you're not worried about breaking your machine, you're not worried about flying. You get to enjoy it and have way more fun. And that's, you know, kind of something special about having that with a frame like this.
Said.
So yeah, I'm really excited to build this one out for Rotor Riot. I'm really hoping that people get this frame and that newbies will be able to start out with something that's extremely durable and they're not going to get frustrated with because it's hard to work on or it's made out of carbon. I mean, you can mount the ESCs directly to the frame without having to isolate them. You don't have to worry about your electronics shorting out on the carbon or anything stupid like that. So there's just so many advantages, especially for newbies going to this frame. Like, I can't sing its praises enough, really. And I'm not, and again, RaGGe just sends me frames. I'm not, there's no cash deals with them. There's no weird contracts. They just support me, and I like to support them because they make a great, awesome product that I actually like to fly. So yeah, so I'm super excited to get on with the live build here in a few minutes. We're going to be starting at 1 p.m., but we still have 30 minutes to go. I'm trying to figure out what more to show you around. When I do have people joining me in the Google Hangouts, I'll be able to pull them in. Then we have a Google Hangouts chat for the bench, so they can be with us on the bench while we build or work on something. And we have a intro, a standby screen, presentation screen like this again, and yeah. So I think all systems are go for the stream so far. We've had a solid upload rate. I haven't seen the stream dip in speed. That was an issue I had with Twitch. For whatever reason, when I was uploading to Twitch with the stream, it would keep dropping, and it was really bad. So yeah, I'm stoked. Simon says, a mate runs a couple RaGGe builds, and they're tough as nails. Hey, Jamie! Welcome to the stream. Glad you could make it.
Tornado Girl FPV said, what do you think about FPV culture?
That's a good question. It's, in the beginning, FPV culture popped out of the maker scene. Just people with, like, workbenches doing what I'm doing, essentially just building stuff because it's cool and that's what they like to do. And then it started really getting popularized with racing, and racing tends to draw a certain element, and it's been very racing oriented within the FPV scene the last couple years. And a lot of people, I think, have lost focus on freestyle, lost focus on the fun of it, fun flying, just flying with your friends. I'm not saying it's, horrible, but like, I want to see a revival of freestyle. I want to see a revival of the fun fly. I want to see a revival of this hobby is awesome and it's cool, but we don't have to shout it and yell it. We don't have to like make it look cool. We don't have to be badasses or do or whatever, break laws to make it awesome. Yeah.
Is comedy/drama. Volatronics said. Freestyle for EVR.
Yeah, freestyle forever.
Sparky Josh said. Agreed. Pleasure Tech said. 110% with you.
But the thing is, I think we're going to be seeing the community come back around to FPV being what unites us. I mean, every FPV pilot that I know of that's not specifically in it for racing and the adrenaline rush and the competition of that loves it because we get that feeling of freedom from flying. We get that special something that we don't get otherwise. And that's really what I love about it, and that's really what I like to share about it. Just the magic, the unknowable, unsayable essence that is FPV that really sparks people's imaginations and kind of transcends your thought about the world around you. And it sounds stupid and woohoo when I say it like that, but that's really what it is for me. It's like being a monk and meditating, and then you're meditating with a bunch of friends out in the middle of a field, having an out-of-body experience together. Like, that is kind of magical. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to all be about racing. Oh, what?
Gravy like FPV.
Oh, Gravy Lig is in the house.
Volatronics said. At OLE Gravy like FPV sup gravy. OLE Gravy like FPV said. What's up, Volley? Volatronics said. Gravy.
Gravy. Yeah, like it's, I don't know. I feel like we're gonna see a revival of different culture in the scene. I mean, there's more than one way to shout how awesome FPV is. And realistically, I mean, in order for the community at large, like the outside mainstream community, to start loving drones and FPV again, we have to kind of make it presentable to the general public. We have to think about how other people are going to look at it from the outside in. Is this flight going to be risky? Is this flight going to be looked on badly by the community at large? That's a stupid thing to really have to ask because of, the whole FPV is freedom, do whatever you want. But there's a certain responsibility that should come with the ability to be able to have that kind of complete freedom. Yeah, and that's kind of something that I really hope and wish pilots would wield more responsibly. And I think they will. I think things are changing. And I'm sorry if anyone thinks my views are downtrodden or wrong or whatever, but that's my views. And I don't really talk about it much because I don't want FPV to go away. I want us to be able to come together as a community, be able to hold really good events, be able to have the mainstream community at large adopt FPV. Because I really think there's a bright future for what we're doing. I really think there's a bright future for FPV in general. I mean, we have kits now, like full-on FPV kits that cost like less than $100. I mean, a video game now costs $100. The fact you can buy FPV for the price of a video game is substantial because it allows it to enter a whole new market of people, a whole new mainstream market of consumer. And those people that try FPV and really like it well, to get into it properly, then they can spend, you know, the $500+ to invest in proper hardware. And that's, I think, a much better way to get into it versus having to say, yeah, you want to get enough, you drop $1,000 on all this stuff and then try it out. I mean, that's kind of how it was a year ago or 3 years ago. You had to invest quite a bit of money just to get into it. So the fact that you can buy a tiny whoop for less than $100 is incredible.
Said, it looks cool, but TBH, the UK doesn't have many bando places that aren't locked tight.
Well, and that's the thing. There's not a lot of bando places where I'm at either. They're all pretty Loctite.
Simaz FPVUF said, I just can't get into Sims.
Sims are, I mean, it depends if you play the right sim. If you're into racing, like Velocidrone has great physics. I cut off stream right at the right time. I love you, Pleasure Tech. Don't hate me. Sims are a lot of fun. I play Liftoff personally for 3D, but if you're into racing, Velocidrone has great physics, and if you set it up, I think it's one of the best simulators, and quite honestly, will give you real skills. I mean, that's one of the things I kind of want to do with the whole 6 hours from midnight to 6 a.m. is just stream and get as much stick time on my transmitter as possible to see if my fingers fall off or see if I get better. So yeah, let me go back to the workbench so you can all see what I'm going to be working on. We're going to be starting in just about 20 minutes. This is probably going to be the most boring part of the stream, to be honest. And once we get started with the build stream, I'm going to be cutting off the robot completely.
Volatronics said, I need to try Velodrone since I think Liftoff feels like the real flight sim. Sparky Josh said, are you going to fly during the stream?
Yeah, no, I'll be flying, yeah. I've got a tiny whoop that'll be flying around the room.
Said, what's
hey, welcome to the stream.
Jiraiya Plays said, thanks for the sub, Volatronics.
Yeah, so we're just kind of getting started with everything today. Please, you know, get comfy. It's going to be a long one. When I start getting into the build stream, it's going to be very fast.
Drones are where it's going to go, I recon. Little AFPV said, Liftoff needs a but tuning and it feels great. Rotor Rush is freaking awesome. And Velocidrone is doing great things with their league. Simaz FPVUF said, I'll be still cheering you on during the sim record though, lol.
Yeah.
Quadbit FPV said, you need a pretty good computer to play the sims and I want to fly them so bad. Benai said, is this going to be Beta Flight 3D Quad? Little AFPV said, asterisk bit not but haha. Gabe Colon said, hello there 3D pilot.
Yeah, so this is not going to be a 3D quad. Although we could put 3D on it, there's nothing stopping us from after the stream and configuring it, adding 3D to the setup. So if you want to see this thing do 3D, type it in the comments. I want to hear you tell me to 3D this. If you want to see this machine 3D, let me know, because we will make it work. Hey, Holy Mindless. Hey, Square. Hey, everybody. Yeah, and so for those of you that are getting into 3D flying, there's actually a Discord community. If you look in the description of the video, there's a link to the Discord, and we have a healthy and growing community of 3D pilots that are talking on the daily to each other about builds and tricks and all that good stuff. And it's really cool to see the community finally start building up for 3D pilots in that area. And I'm expecting to see a lot more 3D this year. That was one of the things that I was kind of like down on myself. Last year I pushed X-Class so hard with the giant drone racing because I loved it and it was fun. I didn't really focus on 3D. I didn't focus on updating my setup. I didn't focus on pushing my limits. I got comfortable. And this year, I'm really going to be pushing my limits. I'm really going to be trying to see how far I can push my 3D abilities. And simulators are the best way for me to do that. By the time I'm done with the stream in the morning, I will hopefully have flown over 300 batteries worth of 3D batteries on a quad. That's the equivalent of a whole month worth of flying if you're doing it at a regular basis. Yeah, 3D on a Switch with Betaflight. So when we set this up, we could put 3D on a Switch so you can have regular 2D mode. And then when you want to do freestyle, pop it down, land, hit a switch, and then you have 3D mode and your center stick is now zeroed. So it sounds like people want to see this 3D. Go figure. So before the stream starts, actually, let's talk about that a little bit. One of the reasons why I wasn't going to 3D the build initially was the CG. This is an inherently stable aircraft. If you count the props as a lifting wing, that means all of the weight is below the prop line. So you have the battery, the motors, electronics. The only thing that sticks above here is the camera. So when it goes around turns and stuff, it's carrying the weight of the aircraft with it. And when you do the flips and the flippy floppies, what happens is, oh god, I got Boston. What happens is you get the Boston accent and you can't even talk right. Oh no, I pushed the wrong button. So what happens with this is that, for example, when you go and do a maneuver and you flip it upside down, you're essentially tossing all this weight up. And then you go zero throttle and you have all this weight kind of throwing the quad around. It doesn't fly quite right. It doesn't feel super locked in. But I have 3D'd a RaGGe WBX before. So I know it'll work. And I know the hardware that we have will support it. And it will support the 5-cell setups that I'm used to. So the question really is, will the Rotor Riot 2306 2450 kV motors withstand 3D and the racecraft tri-blades that I have? We'll see. We will see. Again, wrong button. Okay, so I'll get used to the streaming setup eventually. That's partly one of the reasons why I wanted to do 24 hours, was to just get in my element, get used to how everything works, and eventually, yeah. So Holy Mindless says, we'd like to see you actually set it up. If it's not a good 3D flyer, then go 2D. Some machines aren't just suited for it. We don't know how the stuff works. Yeah, so setup won't be any different. So we'll do 3D on it anyways. And it's really actually not bad, because before we had turtle mode, that was turtle mode. That's how pilots were starting to flip their quads over. And then developers were like, we should make that a feature. So they started using the reversing of the ESCs to actually control the quad from flipping. But I think actually what they do is just spin up 2 of the motors, independently, upside down, flips over. It's cool. Turtle mode, I think, actually came out of 3D. Don't quote me on that, please. Cool, we are just a few minutes away from starting the RaGGe WBX build. As you can see, we have just parts on the bench, and we have a full build here ready to go and to be completed. So this should be done by about 3 o'clock. Once we get started with the build, I'm going to have chat completely turned off, and it's going to be nothing but me going through this as quickly as possible, explaining it as clearly as possible, so you know what's going on, and you can watch the video later for people that do get this frame and they have something to go off of. Essentially doing a live build video. Yeah. And my hair looks like a mess today, so. Let's see.
Do they have modular frames like that, or are they all unibody? Have you ever broken one?
So that's a great question.
Freaky said, gotta love the RaGGe.
Where are you, Frame? I have something floating around somewhere. I'm just trying to figure out where I ended up putting it. Because I have a RaGGe frame that has the arms that you can pop off. It's a newer one, so it's not unibody. Because yeah, most of the RaGGe frames are unibody designs. They have a single base plate, and that makes it, I don't know, makes it a little lighter, I guess, and makes it a lot easier for them to manufacture.
Jiraiya Plays said, who do you watch in the FPV community for tips and news?
Oh, that's easy. Bruce, RC Mall Reviews, still watch Flight Test.
Said, Beer Rotor looks like Beer Rotor.
Yeah, because it is Beer Rotor. It also looks like the Laughing Man logo. I don't know. Could it be a hidden sign of something more sinister? A global plot of... What was I going to say? A global plot of conspiracies.
Plays,
yeah.
Said, Bruce rocks.
Yeah, Bruce is cool. Like, Bruce is what I went to originally back before I knew how to solder, and I learned how to solder watching his videos. So, big shout out to Bruce. I'm still a huge fan.
How do you find a screw on that table?
You don't find a screw on this table. So one of the big things with these cup systems is that all the screws are actually in the cups. This allows me to keep everything together in the stages of the build, so I can do it all in order without having to look through a bunch of stuff. On top of that, I have a spare parts bin with a bunch of stuff for the build to my side. It allows me to just reach over and grab stuff as needed. So I actually turn on the soldering iron and start getting stuff going. We are about to start here in just a few minutes. We are less than 10 minutes away from the start of the build stream. When we do start the build stream, there will be an intro playing, and after the intro, I will be not looking at chat. I will be focusing on just this camera, that camera, and the one here. So it's going to get weird, it's going to get quiet, and I'm going to basically be talking stream of conscious the whole time. What do I know about the Laughing Man? I know a lot about the Laughing Man. I'm a huge Ghost in the Shell fan. A huge physically and metaphysically Ghost in the Shell fan. Yeah, and I was going to say, definitely check out DeadBand. DeadBand is a really cool network. They're one of the ones I really wanted to promote, especially towards the end of the stream. I wanted to send all you guys over to the DeadBand network when we get up and running. Really, really neat, really laid back, very chill, nice to hang out with. So, okay, I've seen this question a couple times, and thank you for keep asking the same question. If you have a question and I don't answer, please ask it a few times. Do you think FPV would work as an anime? Yes. I mean, think about it. We have flying robots that we control remotely. That's rife for an anime. I mean, why is that not already an anime? We have giant robot animes up the wazoo. Up the wazoo. Think about it. They can have like FPV racing as like a subculture, and then they have like the giant drone racing and the anime, and all the pilots are like flying these giant house-sized drones through race courses. It could be cool. I'd watch it. Hey, everybody in chat. Wait, Little A says there's cartoons with quads already? What are you talking about, Little A? What? Blasphemous. Blasphemous. What are you talking about? Okay, so I'm going to be searching for a bit of hardware right now. If you see me digging and off screen, it's because I am looking for something very important that I just found. And something I need to add. So these are spacers that I'll be using on the motors to help keep the screws from digging into the frame and the motors themselves. So I'm actually going to open this up and add this to the motors. Another cool thing with this camera setup is that I can do this. So all of a sudden, I can have a close-up view of what I'm working on, and then when I don't want it, pop it back up, and bam. I think that's pretty sexy. And that's a custom setup. Like that arm system, like the fact that it keeps the camera level when I push it around is just so cool. And that was one of the biggest things. When I built this live streaming workbench, I built it so you can access it from both sides. It allows me to put a camera on the other side of the workbench eventually, which will show off something very, very cool. I can't even show you the coolest part about this workbench yet because I don't have a camera set up to record it. So I'm getting out the spacers. We're going to open them up and add a few to our motor pile. We're just prepping for the stream starting here in a few minutes. Like super jazzed that I have y'all in the chat room. Thank you for joining me today. And I think you're really going to enjoy this live stream once it gets going. I have a whole Google Doc planned out with all the steps included for this, all the things needed to put together, all the pieces, what motor links should be, what wires should be cut to and soldered to. Essentially, I created an entire recipe for this. And during the live stream, I'm going to be presenting the recipe to you all. And you can do it too at home, but it's going to take it like 6 more hours. Like every recipe show ever. Like, you see the cooking show, they make something in like 20 minutes that takes several hours to do. Same concept is going to apply to the stream. And I should be looking here, not here. So right on, I've got my little motor spacers here, which I was worried about. I knew I had them somewhere, I just wasn't sure where I had put them. And I need to open a window because it's getting really, really hot in here. So I will be right back. Debating if I want to set you all on standby while I set up the stream and then go right into it. But no, I'm just gonna walk away and let the camera do its thing. That's so cool. Oh my god, I'm excited. Okay, so I have a special surprise in store for after this is done. I don't want to quite ruin it, but I started a Patreon recently and it reached its first goal of $50 a month, and I have a goal like set for that. And I think we're actually going to be able to do it on live stream. So after this build, we're going to have a chocolate cake, and we're going to tiny whoop the cake with candles on fire and try to put out the fire with a tiny whoop. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll probably do that around like 4 o'clock. Maybe later, maybe tonight, I don't know. It's going to be sometime. Okay, so the coffee is definitely working. I am talking very fast. I need to slow down and relax. Ah, that's better. Okay. So we're going to be going live in 2 minutes. And again, you're going to see the stream cut out, and we're going to go into the build, like right off the bat. And if you want Zoe stickers, I don't know yet. I guess I'll have to like start selling them somehow. But I don't want to sell the stickers. I want to be able to give them away. So I'll have to figure out how to do that. Yeah, holy minus, don't overdo it, take care of yourself. Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to be taking care of myself. So the whole thing with this live stream is I have it planned out at certain points in time. I can take a break. Like after this, I have an hour and a half to just chill out and talk to you all about what we just did. And then it goes into chilling out, you know, talking about, like, I think we do live streaming later on. So it should have a nice pace to it. Like, I planned everything to have a nice kind of easy pace so I could get through it all and not be stressing and not be hurting by the end of it. So it is 12:59. We are 1 minute away from the stream starting. Hey Tronstar, I look forward to seeing you in a bit. I don't use Return to Zero Springs. I'm answering these last minute questions before I go live. Okay, so we are officially, I think, starting here. Yeah, lots of drone porn all over the table. A lot of sexy parts on this table right now. Okay, everybody, so I'm going to stop the recording. We're about to go live. Let me grab a non-caffeinated drink and wet my whistle before I go onto this officially. I'm scared now. It's about to happen. It's about to happen. Okay, I'm just fixing things real quick. I'm gonna put you on standby. Hey everybody, welcome to The Bench. I'm Zoe FPV. You are here to witness an all-new show live streamed and put up later on for you all to enjoy. Today we have a very, very special project. You know me from flying this frame. This is the RaGGe WBX. It's one of my favorite flying frames on the market right now. I flew one of the original frames for over a year, flying on the weekly without being able to break it. And from that has created a very cool project with Rotor Riot. This is the Rotor Riot Edition RaGGe WBX build video, and welcome to the fun. So, on this stream, we're going to go through everything you need to know to put one of these machines together. It's going to be a fairly easy process. If you haven't done this before, you can watch the pre-build stream, which will have a link in the description. And if you want help configuring this, you can also check out a link in the description below. This video is just going to be a cooking show to show you all of those amazing things that you need to do to put one of these frames together. If things are a little off, it's because the first time I've done it, and quite honestly, I'm a bit nervous. So thank you for indulging me in this fun video. So without further ado, let's go into the ingredients we'll need to build out this machine. Yeah. Okay, so we have ourselves the RaGGe WBX frame. We have a base plate, a top plate, a midsection, a bottom plate, and 2 side plates. These help protect the cameras. On top of that, we have the Rotor Riot Hype Train 2306 2450 kV motors. These are great motors. I love them a lot, and in the description below, you'll see the link that we have them cut to, and the prep video shows you everything you need to know to get these ready for the build. Then, making those motors go we have the Wraith 32 or Wraith 35 amp 32 BL Heli ESCs. We have these pre-soldered and ready to go for our build with the wires cut out to 100 millimeters in length. You can find the information for this in the description. We have the DICE or DYS F4 Pro V2 flight controller and PDB. This is also pre-soldered and ready to go. You can find, again, links to this in the description. We have the Rotor Riot RunCam Swift 2 camera. A very, very awesome camera. It's got a great lens. All the settings are pre-done. One of the best looking cameras on the market right now if you're getting into it. And then to make the camera actually give us signal, we have a Unify Pro HV transmitter from Team Black Sheep. And for our control link, we have the micro receiver V2 from Team Black Sheep running Crossfire, and we have the mini or micro transmitter from Team Black Sheep as well. So those are our main parts for the build. And the first thing that we're going to have to do is, I keep pushing the wrong buttons here, guys. First thing we're going to have to do is prep our base plate. This frame comes already cut. You don't really have to do anything with this. And from there, you're going to essentially just have to attach the motors. The motors have 4 screws. Included are going to be little spacers for the motors that you're going to have to use on the bottom of the frame. And so let's get into that right now. Yeah. Going to attach our motors, and these are cut down to 30 millimeter length and pre-tinned in the pre-build video, link in the description. And for this, we're only going to attach 2 of the motors to save a little bit of time. I recommend you attach all 4. And again, with these, you're going to really want the spacer involved, because if you don't use the spacer, what's going to happen is it's going to end up going into the motor, and it's going to short out 2 of the wires. And you don't want your motor shorting out, so you're going to want to use a spacer. And of course, you're going to want the proper tool for that bolt. We have ourselves a 3mm hex driver. You're going to want a 3mm and a 2mm hex driver bit for this build. And I am already screwing it up. The first screw is always the hardest when you get into these things, I find. Especially with this build, because the motors are deep set like this, which actually really does help protect the motor in a crash. But when you're putting it together, it's a pain in the butt, because you kind of have to wiggle the motor around in the wheel well to get it to line up the screw holes. But once you do, it's pretty easy to deal with. Okay, we've got 1 screw in. Let's get another going. And this is really going to be a very relaxing part of the stream. If you watch the pre-build video, you'll know that we did a lot of prep on this frame to get it ready for this build. One of the things that we ended up doing was cutting these motor wires down to 30 millimeter in length, and then tinning the wire ends to get them ready for this. It's very simple and easy to do, but it takes a lot of time. And that time can be better spent explaining to you the ins and outs of the actual build. And the whole concept of this is essentially a cooking show for quadcopters. At the end of the stream, or at the end of 3 p.m., hopefully within the next 2 hours, you will see a working machine in front of you, instead of just a bunch of parts. And that itself is kind of magical. And sorry if I'm not responding to you in the live stream. This part is the only part of the 24-hour live stream that I'm doing right now that will not have audience interaction. So I appreciate you watching, and if you have any questions, please ask away in chat. I will try to read them at some point and answer them the best that I can. Come on now, find your home. It doesn't want to find its home. See, this is a wayward motor. The biggest thing is you don't want to cinch the motors down completely, because once you do one screw, it's really hard to wiggle the motor around to get it into the hole. And that's what she said. If you are a routine builder of drones, you know this is a very laborious process and takes quite a bit of time. After we get these motors attached, the next part will be attaching the ESCs to the motors, and then we will attach the flight controller stack. But before I do that, I want to reconfirm that's indeed what I had planned. And thank you all for joining me today on this video. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, please leave a comment, please leave a like. If you have a question, please ask it. I would love to answer anything that you want to know about this or any other build. And don't forget to subscribe. Cool, so we're almost done with the third motor. We only have one more to go after this. Again, breezing through this section, and this is really one of the most boring parts of the build. From here, the rest of it should be pretty fun and pretty quick. So I'm just putting the frame flat on the bench, which helps hold the motor in place as I'm attaching the screws. And again, we're using a little 1.5 millimeter thick nylon spacer to help alleviate some of the pressure on the screw and the frame. So what will happen is the screw will tend to dig down into the frame, and you will end up essentially missing out on that. Or that. Sorry, my computer did something and I started like thinking about it. What will happen is the screw will go into the motor and short out the screws, and over time the screw will end up digging into the motor and the motor will get hot and deforming the frame. So you really want to add in these screws and the spacers to help avoid the frame from deforming when you add in your screws. There we go. No, just go in your home. Why are you being difficult, frame? Every build's a little difficult, you know? You can't always have an easy build. There's always something that that's gonna happen that's gonna get in your way. But motor screws should not be one of them. Right on, so now that we have our motors attached to the frame, we can start working on attaching the ESCs. I know I said that was what we're going to do first, but I think we're going to actually attach the flight controller stack to the frame so we don't have the ESCs flopping around. So to do that, we have ourselves our a little tray of flight controller stack. This is going to be our current build. So the flight controller stack is kind of important here. There's a little bit of a trick to it. This frame is going to come with a stack of standoffs. We have a rubber standoff on the bottom, a 5mm nylon spacer, a 15mm flathead bolt, and the rubber vibration dampener for the frame itself. So with that, I already have some of the vibration dampeners on this. I'm going to take this apart so you can see what it's made out of. So essentially the frame's going to have the frame itself is really good at absorbing vibration. Because it's not carbon fiber, it ends up acting more like a sponge versus a tuning fork. which is really nice because you end up with less vibrations getting into the flight controller, and that means a better tune and a better flying machine. Because you can try to tune out and kind of, you know, get rid of the vibes from tuning and adding filters and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's still not going to be as good as if you just, you know, isolated the flight controller and added a little bit of dampening to it. And if you get lost on this, you can look in the description of the video below and you'll find a full build guide for what we're working on. Let me just see, I'm trying to find, I had something popped up, where are you? Yeah, see now I can't even see the chat of this. Here. There you go, now I can see chat. Thank you. Sorry for that little pause in the video there. Trying to make this more for post-produced, so if you're watching this non-live, it's more like, oh hey, you can watch a video that shows you how to build this. So if you're watching this non-live, that's what I'm doing. This is originally a live stream show that I am filming. So I figured cooking shows are historically live, and doing it like that is kind of fun. It shows you that there's no weird magic behind it. You get to see me do it raw. And you get to see it's really not that hard, and it's not a lot of, I don't know, a lot of difficulty to actually put something together. So again, we have a 15mm screw or flathead here, and we're adding our 5mm nylon standoffs. And from there, we're going to add our rubberized standoffs here. And the reasoning for this is to help get the flight controller up off the main plate of the frame. So the USB port will clear and it won't be obstructed when we fly. The other cool thing is it adds a nice space underneath the flight controller for the receiver, and because the frame's not carbon fiber, you don't have to worry about the receiving wires being in a Fresnel zone if you mount them under the frame or if you have a weird mounting system. So you can literally just stuff the receiving wires into the frame and not have to worry about it. Right on, so we have our flight control stack put together and our first step done. That's pretty magical. And going really quickly. So now that we have our flight control stack done, we need to attach it to the frame. It shouldn't be that hard. We're only going to need a couple of little screws to do that. So, there we go. We're going to use, let me actually just pop this. We have our little screws in here. We have button head screws right now that we're going to use. Thought I had another one in there. And this is why I have a little part bin right next to me in case I need to grab an extra part. And again, all of these parts are going to be listed in the description of the video, so if you're wondering what I'm doing or what I'm working on, you'll find it there. Let's zoom out a little bit. Bam. Okay, so to attach our flight controller, you don't have to really worry about the direction of the frame yet. Any way could be forward. So we're just going to line up the flight control stack and start getting these screws into the stack. We're only 20 minutes in and we're already mounting the flight controller. Not doing too bad. Not doing too bad, if I say so myself. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the comments. I will happily answer. Right on. We have our one in. Let's line up our next hole. Blam! Yeah, so this is going to be a bottom-mounted ESC frame, for those who are unfamiliar. The whole idea with the bottom mount is it actually keeps the ESCs from being hit by props, and because of the bottom plate of the frame, what ends up happening is the ESCs are tucked away in this little like cavity where it's really hard for them to get hit. And the only time they will get hit is if you hit a branch in just the right way. And so at the end of the stream, I'll go over some ways to protect the ESCs more, or realistically, if you don't want to, you don't have to use any heat shrink or any adhesive on this build to keep the ESCs from working. That is completely optional, and I'm going to show you some really cool tips and tricks on how to handle that. Right on. Our flight control stack is now in, and wiggle, 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 wiggle. Oh, wiggle, 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 wiggle. That's just so much wiggling going on there. So that was a lot of force to do that. As it's flying, it shouldn't be, hopefully it shouldn't be too bad. We'll see. If that's an issue, if it ends up having a vibration, what we'll do is we'll replace some of the standoffs with a 10mm, and we'll be good to go. So now that we have the flight control stack attached to the frame, we're going to add ESCs onto the bottom. So essentially, now that we have the ESCs already prepped in the last stream, and we have the wires attached and cut to 100mm in length, we can use any ESC we already have prepped to attach to any of the motors, and we will move on from attaching the ESC to the flight control stack. So I have my soldering iron right now. It is warming up. I need to put a little bit of water on my sponge, and I'll be back in just a half second. Okay, so that took like 10 seconds. Yeah, and if you have any questions, RaGGe Designs is in the chat, and he can answer anything that you need to know. So now that we have the soldering iron ready and good to go, we're going to add our solder. We don't need solder, but we should tin the tip of our soldering iron to make it go a little bit easier. Let me make some space here, now that I have some freedom. I don't need the motor thingy. Yay, we're actually getting rid of stuff on the bench. And we had an ESC. Here we go. Is that the one? Yeah. Okay. Just making sure the camera can see what I'm doing. So one by one, we're going to attach the wires. Now it doesn't matter which direction yet, because at the end of the video or in the configuration video, we will have to swap 2 of these wires on 2 of the motors to get the motor directions to go right. Now you don't have to do that. You could change it in Betaflight and BL Heli Configurator, but I find that you tend to forget that you do that at some point in time, and it causes a problem, especially if you're trying to do 3D. And you end up putting like a new ESC on it after it breaks, you forget about it, and blam, you end up cutting your face open. It's not like I've done that or anything, but come on now. I'm trying to be too perfect with my solders when really I don't need to be. So because we have the tin on both the tip of the ESC and the motor wire, it should be fairly fast to put this on. These ESCs come untinned, so you will have to add a bit of solder to each pad before you apply the wire. Bam, that's one ESC down. Let's see how fast we can do this. Clean my tip. And thank you all for joining me today on this build. It's pretty fun to be able to do this. We're just going to paint a happy little tree over here. A happy tree, yep. Going to be a nice little happy tree. Look at that happy little ESC. Just so happy. So you have one connection down, 2 more to go. Come on now. Go in your home. You know you want to. You know you want to go in your home. There you go. It's 2 ESCs down, 2 to go. As you can see, we're starting to have a spaghetti mess of wiring. We'll get rid of that mess very, very shortly. And again, if you want to watch the process of doing all these, you can watch the pre-stream video, which will be linked in the description of this video eventually. And that video is like 5 hours long. Total time for someone to actually build one of these is probably about 5 to 7 hours. Unless you're really like Sean tailoring it and doing it in a half an hour. That guy can build quadcopters as fast as he can fly them. Okay, another one down. We got one left. It's funny, as you start doing more of the ESCs, they tend to be faster and faster. You get into a groove of soldering and getting it done, and it tends to go really fast after a certain point. At least for me. And if you're getting to this hobby, one of the, I think, best things is just how fun it is to build. Like, I like tuning out, thinking about nothing else besides what's in front of me and what I'm working on. And I just bridged a connection. I need to add some flux and clean that up. So on these ESCs, there's a little cap there that's really close. I think it probably is okay, but I don't want to risk it. And these ESCs, I don't think it's been a problem for anybody, but I don't want it to be a problem. Let's see if you can see what I'm talking about. See, it's bridging to the... Yeah, it's bridging right there. So I'm going to add a little bit of flux to the pad here. Get it all nice and fluxied. And the flux will basically make the solder go where it needs to go and should hopefully keep it from not going where it shouldn't be. And I should be able to just tap the pad and clean it up fairly easily. We'll see. And just like that, we fixed it. Come on, camera. My camera really does not want this to be seen. Yeah. So you can see there, it's pretty much fixed. My camera really hates me right now. There we go. Nice and shiny now. So again, if you end up bridging a solder point or end up getting one of the pads of one of the capacitors or something blobbed, putting some flux on the board and then just hitting it with the iron will help reflow everything, and in most cases will fix the issue. It's actually kind of cool that that happened on the build stream, because then this is like a newbie thing. If you screw this up, you're going to have to probably do that. Yeah. Chim chim cheerio. And if you really want to learn how to work on microboards, watch Ross Linderman or Lyman. He does a lot of repair work on the internets, and that's actually his primary business, is repairing micro boards and PCBs and stuff. So I've learned a lot watching him from both his live stream and his soldering work. Okay, just one more and we are good on the motor connections. Sexiness. Okay, I'm just gonna clean a little bit of that flux away. I don't like the buildup of it on my boards. And wow, we're up to 49 watching and 50 likes. Thank you for watching the stream. I appreciate it. Sorry I'm not chatting to you all more. So now that we have the ESCs attached to our frame, we're going to start putting the ESCs and attaching them to our flight control board / PDB. We're going to do it one at a time, so you don't have to worry about which ESC goes where, and this whole process should make it simple to wire essentially the ESCs upside down. So essentially now that we have this board picked out, we have 2 solder pads for our flight control, or not flight control, but we have 2 we have an XT60 that will connect to our flight control stack at these 2 solder pads. This is officially the back of our aircraft. No matter which way the board is mounted initially, it's now the back of the aircraft. So keep that in mind, because now motor number 1 is going to be your back left, or no, your back right motor. Motor number 2 is going to be your front right motor. Motor number 3 is going to be your back left motor. And motor number 4 is going to be your front right motor. All of these pads are listed right here, and they're actually conveniently listed. So it says 1, 2, 3, and 4 right on the flight controller. It's super simple, guys. And if you can't find that, I have a whole document written up on all the arrangements with an image of how it's supposed to go. So yeah, let's get on to that and move on to essentially adding the FPV gear. We might finish this thing in less than an hour. Holy crud. Wow, we are breezing through this thing, everybody. So cool. Let's see. So now that we have that, let's find our motor number 1. This is our motor number 1. We have slots on the frame that we can use to feed our wires up into. And again, if you watch the pre-stream, you can see how we have all these set up. And this one has too much solder on it for me to actually get it through the hole. Come on. Do your job. Do your job. Come on. There you go. There we go. Okay. So we need to feed motor number 1 up through the hole. We're going to do it this way. We're going to use this hole. And we're going to do 1 motor at a time. And it's gonna make it a little bit difficult to pop the flight controller off. So if you want to put anything underneath the flight controller and you're following this guide, now is the time to shove something underneath there. We still have enough space to put our micro receiver, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. But just like an FYI to anyone watching the stream. Let's see, get the wires all up in here. There we go. So another thing to keep in mind is that the motor has a cover over it. So we need to line up the holes on this with the motor wires around that and make sure that the holes on the frame aren't obstructed by the wires, so when we put the stand or the long screw through the frame, we don't hurt any of the wiring. So just a little bit of an onside, make sure that this hole is always unobstructed. So that's good for now. I'm going to flip it back over. And now we have them, wait, did I do the right motor? Yes. So we have our motor wires coming up on the side. See if I can get things to focus. It's just like right when I want it to focus right, it's just like, nope, I don't like you. So I'm just going to try to go in closer. Yeah, there we go. That's a sexy view. Now you can see what I'm doing. So we're going to attach the motor number 1 positive and negative signal wires before we attach the voltage wires. And that should be pretty easy to do. So we can hit this from 2 different sides. I'm going to hit the wires from this inside out. As you can see that I'm doing here. And we have, again, a negative and positive. And I'm just double checking to make sure that I know which is which. Signal 1, this has got to be the right one. So we've got a signal negative on the outside. And you're going to want to be careful that you don't accidentally solder blob this onto any of the metal, like your flight control stack screw. Like that. We have one motor wire done. Let's do our signal for the positive. This is the first time I've ever worked with this board, so you're kind of seeing me figuring it out the first time. And I just hit both of those connections together. Okay, that's both of those. Yeah, I want to double check something real quick. We're going to bring up a document. So this is the document I set up earlier. I'm just making sure that I get the motor pads right. This is not even the right motor, is it? No, it's not. Okay. Well, I need to update the guide because I think I've got the image of the wrong one on this. But yeah, I think that's definitely right though, because that was signal 1, and that's, yeah. Ground is generally on the outside, and those are on the outside, so. Just double checking the work. You know, gotta double check it sometimes because, you know, if you're wrong, stuff can tend to blow up. So now that I have that figured out and 100% confirmed, it's kind of weird because now the voltage negative is kind of swapped with the positive, whereas the, you know, signal wires on the inside there, voltage is on the outside pad. So it's kind of backwards. Like, it's really actually not what I'm used to as far as that's concerned. Generally, you always want ground on the outside of the board. It just makes things less confusing, but because, you know, everyone has a different standard these days, it's really hard to find stuff that actually works like that. So I'm going to add the positive. And it really doesn't matter how you wire these wires up. Like, you could do it a few different ways. Like, you could run them up from underneath the board and then up this way. I'm putting a lot of the wires on the top, that way I leave room underneath for the receiver. And yeah, that's just my personal preference. Let's hit the negative pad. And after we get these connected, that'll be the bulk of the work on this build. Just because there's a lot of connections here that you have to go through and make sure you don't screw up. So now that we have motor number 1 soldered in, we're going to add motor number 2. Yeah, so we have motor number 1 here. Motor number 2 is going to be here, and we're going to have that go through the front. Actually, let's have that go through the side. There's enough room to shove all the wires in through that same slot we had motor number 1 go through. And yeah, there's a few different ways you can run these wires, and there's enough length that you can run them a couple different ways and get away with it. So don't be too worried about how you do this part. And there's a lot of room on this build. Like, it looks tight, and I know I have it, like, and I'm building it quite tight, but there's a lot of room to add slack to the wiring, so you don't have to worry about the bunching up issue I'm having right now. I have so many wires in this slot that it doesn't want me to put more. Okay, that's one of the bigger ones. One more wire. Again, it'd be easier to go through the individual slots and have one ESC per slot, but if you want to make it hard on yourself and you want to make it look a little more clean, you can get 2 ESCs per slot. It just takes a little bit of work. Let's fish that wire out. And thank you all for joining me today on this. Again, if you have any questions about this, please leave a comment. I will get back to them as quickly as I can. Okie dokie. I actually need to take some of that back. Okay, that's 2 of those fed through. So as you can see, we've kind of got the cables braided in and through, and again, we're keeping clearance right here for the cover, which will go like this. And you kind of want to leave a little bit of excess so you can play around with the spacing a little bit on the ESCs. So these can wiggle around. Okay, right on. So those are good. Let's go on to motor number 3. So motor number 3, again, we're going to do this backside through here. So it looks like we might get done with this build early, which I'm stoked about. So again, we're just running these wires up through the main canopy, and again, we're mounting the ESCs on the bottom of the frame. But you can mount these, I mean, it's just the same as mounting, it's all, you know, the same stuff at the end of the day. So don't get too, like, wigged out by the fact you're mounting them upside down. It's just different. Like, it's the first time I ever had to mount anything upside down. Actually, no, the second time. My Excalibur frame actually has, like, a whole upside down main plate. So, yeah, it's weird, but it's not that hard to wrap your brain around. So we have motor number 3 up. And again, these pads are numbered, so you can easily see where motor number 3 needs to be. And if you line them up, it should be the closest one to the pad. It's really nice about the Flight controllers. It has that ability to do that. Get in close. Now, zoom. Focus. Focus, camera. Yes. Now we're in focus. Okay, so now we're just going to add a little bit of tin to soldering iron, getting it nice and ready to go. And again, signal negative is on the outside for some reason. And signal positive is on the inside, it looks like. If I'm wrong, and at the end of the stream I find out I'm wrong, I'm sorry, I misled you all. And hopefully you watch the entire build video at least once before you try building it. Okie dokie now. That's one wire down. Wait, where's my signal wire? Ah, I've got to fish the signal wire out. Yeah, signal wire. Come here, come here, come here. Come on, come on. Come on, come out to play. There you are. Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was a good connection. Always double check your connections, make sure everything looks good. Yeah. You don't want to just trust it to trust it. That almost always leads in failure. Okay, so now I'm... Okay, negative, positive, negative, positive. Okay. The board could make more sense. And that's when my finger starts hurting because I burnt myself. Ow. Scheiße. Remember, kids, soldering irons are hot. Okay, so that's 2 of the ESCs soldered together. Now we've got to solder this ESC that we got pushed up through earlier. Again, we have alternating ground and positive. But weirdly, the signal for the ground signal is always on the outside, positive's on the inside. But the voltage is positive, negative, which is awkward. So just keep that in mind when you're building. It could be easier, it could be a little more fluid than what it currently is. Okay, that's 1 down. Positive. And I get really quiet during this part because I'm focusing on trying not screwing this up. They're very tiny connections, and it's very close proximity. The rest of the build is a lot easier. This is probably one of the more laborious parts, especially at later because we're going to have to move some of these wires out of the way to access the rest of the board. So just keep that in mind when you're building. We still have to connect the receiver, and that's going to require us to move some of these wires out of the way. So it might be a little difficult on this build, but I don't think it's going to really be a problem. My phone blipped. I'm hoping everything is still working. I hope. Okay, so again, some people might not recommend doing it this way, the way I have the wires coming up and into it. Generally, you have the wires coming from the outside, but because these pads are so close to the wall of the frame, I decided to do it like this. Also, this tends to be less stress on the connections, but because everything is so protected, I doubt there's going to be really any stress on these connections when it's put together. But again, just better safe than sorry. Also, it looks cool. It's kind of like, I don't know. Ow, hot. That hurts so bad. Okay, we have our ESC. We have 1 left to go. Let's feed this one up through the slot. I'm going to make the solder blob a little smaller. And shove this into the hole. Shove it in the hole! Just, it'll fit! It'll fit! Just shove it in there! Just shove it! Push it, yeah, just push it. All you gotta do is push it. Okay. This is seriously the most labor-intensive part of this whole build, is getting the ESCs routed and put into place and soldered in. Come on now. Worked last time I tried this. Like, the other side fit. Okay, it's the biggest of the wires. Come on. Fit, come on, fit. So again, you might want to have all these wires going up into their own slots. You don't have to do it the way I'm doing it and making it hard on yourself. Okay, there we go. So we got all of our wires now, at least up out of that. Let's double check that we are not overextending things over here. That looks good. That looks really good on this side. Looks really good, I think. So we have all of our ESCs routed. Now we just need to secure that one last ESC. And the bulk of this build will be done. Again, this is really a large part of it at this point. It's just putting these ESCs together and soldering it all up. Just double check that it's working. Yeah, no, chat, it's definitely working. People are watching. Thank you for still watching if you're watching. I know I'm not really interacting with chat much right now. I will be very shortly. And we're almost really done with this build. Once I get this done and the receiver soldered in, that'll be the biggest part of it. And I just bridge those connections. Let's add a little bit of flux. A little bit, not like the whole jar. And try cleaning this up. Okay. A little bit of flux does wonders in a situation like that. A little bit of tin on the tip of your iron really does help too. Ow. Okay, that's one connection done. Let's get this last one. I don't like using flux on every connection if I don't have to. It's not like it's cheating or anything stupid like that. I don't know. What? Motor pad fell off? What the heck? No! What the frack? Oh. Okay, so this is interesting. That just happened. Let's see if I can get the stream back here. Okay, so I was just soldering and I ended up actually killing a motor pad. It's really hard to see. But the motor pad on the flight controller actually lifted off the board. So that just happened. I've heard there's ways you can enable motor number 5 and 6 on this. Yeah. So I'm going to essentially have to figure out how I'm going to map that motor output. It shouldn't be the end of the world, and it shouldn't be the end of the stream. And realistically, the build video can continue on. And in the configuration video, you can see me how I swap out the motor pad to something else. And quite honestly, it's something I've already done, and something I actually did on this other RaGGe build. So, hopefully you have the spare UART. Yeah, there's a spare UART on this board. But yeah, so that's a bit of a setback, but pending that, let's continue on with the stream. I don't want this to be a bearer of bad news or whatever. Again, it's just a bit of a small setback and more of like a, god dang it, just something else we're going to have to fix. But essentially, it's kind of cool because I get to show you all how to fix it. And if you have that problem with this build, you'll know how to fix that issue. I'm still kind of godsmacked that I did that, really. Kind of disappointed in myself. And I don't know if it was me, if it was just delicate or what. Like, I haven't lifted a signal pad on any flight controller. Like, that is literally the first time I've ever lifted a signal pad. So, yeah. Anyways, we'll attach the power connectors and we'll essentially just leave that one free floating. We have positive on the outside, negative on the inside. I'm bummed. That sucked. But it's not the end of the world. No, the end of the world is happening in 20 years. No. Okay. So those are connected. Those are good. And we're getting back to doing this properly. Okay, now that we have, in theory, I should say, moving on as if I did not screw that up. Now that we have that done and our ESCs connected, we will save our little signal wire for later and deal with that later. Oh, I just screwed that something up. I seriously got like, what's the word? Frazzled? Yeah. I got frazzled. I ended up connecting the wrong wires to this. Yeah, that's the signal wire. Ta-da! I'm not that big of an idiot. Okay, now that we have their ESCs attached to the flight controller and PDB, pending our little boo-boo that we just made, the next step is going to be putting on the bottom plate of the frame and essentially getting the flight stack and the rest of the frame going. For this, we're going to need our bottom plate, and again, you're going to want to leave these wires kind of loose and have room to jiggle around as needed. And we're just going to try to get this on to kind of dry fit everything. And it's going to take a bit of wiggle work to get this on properly. Oh, the fidget spinner makes me feel better. It's better now. We're good now. Okay, so now that we have this on, we're going to need our frame cup. We have some long screws here that we need to pull out. These are going to go through the whole, I believe these are 30mm long? No, 20mm long. And this is going to go through the bottom plate of the frame, up into the base plate, and into the flight control stack. And the biggest thing is when you screw up something with these builds is you need to really just chill out. Like, most of the time it's not the end of the world unless you completely ripped off like components. Especially with motor pads, you can remap them. Keep spinning, you spinner. Spinning, more spinning. And I just lost a screw. Dun, 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 there it is. Yeah, you can't, it's very easy to lose stuff on this workbench. I gotta say, thank you all 40 of you that are watching this now. This is my first ever live stream on YouTube's for the build videos. So now that we have our stack screws on the bottom plate, we have our thing squished down, we're going to add our standoffs. There's 25mm standoffs included in the kit. And this is going to make our main frame stack. And we're just going to screw these on. It's going together fairly smoothly. Besides the minor mistake that happened, we're actually putting this together very, very quickly. So after this, we just have the receiver and the main stack to be completed. And then after that, we just have the FPV gear. And the FPV gear on this build is literally 10 minutes and you're done. And I still have an hour planned for the stream. So we're way ahead of schedule and have plenty of time to look up that UART issue and remap that one motor. So now that we have the standoffs on, we're going to... Yeah, what are we going to do now? We have ESCs in place. We have standoffs on. Receiving wire, right. No, what are you doing? No. That's better. Computer just had like a little bit of a connection fit. I'm like, no, computer, no, you're bad, computer, bad. So now that we have the receiving, now that we have the mainframe put together, our ESCs are on, we need to prep our receiver for the board. I'm using a TBS micro crossfire V2 receiver. You can use anything. This is going to be set for S-Bus. It should be plug and play from what I've been told. So essentially we're going to have to cut off the end of our wire. And to do that, we need some wire strippers. Where are my strippers? Ah, there are my strippers. Why is this happening? I don't... Blink, blink. There we go. Again, still getting used to the streaming software. Another reason why the stream exists right now. So we're going to trim off the end of our wire right here. Bam. We have positive, negative, and we have our signal wire. I'm just going to expose the ends of the wires. Boosh. I'm leaving this really long because it'd be easier to fish out later on. And now that we have the wires exposed, we have to tin it real quick. And one more to go. Right on. So now we have the receiving wire prepped. I need to figure out where I put it. So originally I thought that this board was set up to be differently. So pop you onto my desktop so you can see what I see. I originally thought it was this board. This may be the V1, but it's definitely not set up the same as this board. So I don't think I can use that pinout. So we're going to go pinout hunting. See, isn't that just so helpful? That's just so helpful. Okay, again, Google search it. Oscar Liang, a great resource for informations. Yeah, this is what I need. And that kind of shows you the process I go through to actually look up information. So Google search a way to find what you're looking for most of the time, as long as you know what to search for. Right on. So now that I have the actual pin map figured out, let us find out where we need to put this. So it looks like so we have 5-volt VTX, RS ground, RSSI PM. Where is our S-bus? S-bus, okay, there we go. So you have buzzer, S-bus, voltage. So it looks like on this, let me get this going, we're going to need to hit, okay, I think I know what pads I need to hit. Okay, this is going to be easy. Right on. So let us get back to the bench. Okay, so I figured out what we need to do. We need to hit 3 pads up on the flight controller. It should be pretty easy and simple to go through now that I know what we're actually dealing with. Zoom in on my face, all creepily. Okay, so I need to hit 3 of these pins, and from there, that should be all that I have to really hit on this board to make it work. Let's see if I can get a good view so you can see what I'm doing. And then after that, I'm going to see about remapping that motor real quick. Because I don't want to have to take this all apart and put it back together. And quite honestly, I still have enough time in this live stream budgeted to do it. Because after I get this receiver on, it's literally going to be a matter of like 10 minutes to put the FPV gear on. So within this one, we have the back here, we have these 2 pads I need to hit and tin. So those are our positive and negative pads for the receiver to supply our 5-volt power. And then we have to hit 1 pad for the actual S-bus signal. Right on. Kind of hard to see in there, but let me see. I'm gonna show you. So we hit those 2 pads, and then we have our S-bus pad right down there. And that should make it very easy for us to get this next part done. This is the first time I've ever used any kind of crossfire gear, so I'm still new to it. And I honestly don't think I'm going to be able to get you a good shot of me connecting the S-bus to it. Okay, oop. We have our signal connected, and then we have ground on the outside, positive on the inside. So you have 2 5 volt pads next to each other. Oh, Jack. I don't want to talk to you, Jack, right now. I'm busy. I'm streaming live on the internet, doing a build video, and you're interrupting me in the middle of it. I love you to death, Jack, but I wish you were more aware of what I was doing. He calls me all the time, and I love him to death. He's like my little brother, but I'm trying to show you all what I'm doing, and I can't do that when someone's calling me. I'm going to hit that with a little bit of flux to clean up that pad. There we go. Cleaned it up. Oh, come on. Don't do this to me. Oh. so the tip of the wire started coming unraveled, and the little wires started going in a bunch of different directions, which could end up shorting out the connection and causing problems. So I just cleaned up the end of that wire real quick to make it a little more clean and tidy. I'm still connecting to that. I mean, in theory, I can ground it out. I mean, they're both ground, so those two touching isn't going to be the end of the world. There we go. Why was that so hard? Right on, so now that we have our receiver attached to the board, we can now try shoving it underneath the flight controller. So to do that, we have the flight control or the receiver wires coming out this way. I'm going to run it around and actually put the receiver in on the side here. And we're just going to shove it in there. Nothing special, just shoving it on in there. See, it fits nicely into its home where it will live forever and ever. Or until the end of the stream when we have to bind it. And we're going to try to just shove these wires down below, out of the way for now. I wouldn't recommend just having your antenna shoved in here if you're doing really, really long range. But if you're just doing park flying, it's going to be fine. And quite honestly, I'm not planning to do anything special with the setup. Like, I might fly it out over the ocean, but pending that, I'm not going to be doing like mile-long treks with it, I don't think. Or maybe we will. I don't know. Maybe that's something we will do. Okay, now that we have the receiver kind of shoved in there and put away, we're going to focus on the FPV gear. So now that we have most of the, essentially the bulk of it done, if I did not have that issue with the ESC wire, essentially the flight control system would be done. All we have to add left to the power system is our XT60 connector. So let's add that real quick and move on to the FPV gear. Let me pop open the dashboard so I can see what you're all saying. Trimmed in wires, yeah, no. The wires are supposed to be long for newbies. I'm doing this as if I was a newbie doing it for the first time. So as in to make it more friendly for newbies, I'll be putting this together for the first time, hopefully. I'm making the mistakes so you don't have to. And if you do, you know how to fix them. I'm going to add more heat to the soldering iron because it is just not hot enough. And this is just the battery lead for our battery to flight controller / PDB. And so another issue with trimming the wires, if you trim the wires, it actually makes it harder for you to remove the flight controller if you need to. And with something underneath the flight control stack, I figured that that would be something to take into consideration for people. Sorry, now I'm just dumping heat into it and also my finger. And we need a little bit of flux. No, I just really gypped it. I feel like you're watching someone just haphazardly do this right now, which I'm really not. Okay, that's one. It's a really thick PDB. It seems to absorb a lot of the heat. Right on. That is good to go. It shouldn't always be that hard. It should be as simple as just solder on and you're done. But yeah, so that is our flight control system. I am actually going to see about remapping some of these motors. We have RSI, TX3, RX3, TX1, SI PPM. Actually, I might open this up in chat to see if people can help me with this later on. So moving on with the build so we don't lose steam and pressure. Now that we have our XT60 connected and our power system completed, we're going to do the top plate. So the top plate, we're going to mount our camera, VTX2. Essentially, all of our camera equipment is going to be attached to this one piece. So when we want to take apart the build, all of our FPV gear will be on one part of it, and all of our electronics and actual like flight control stuff will be on the other. Yeah. So let's get into that. Powering through this build right now. Let's add this in. Let's see. I'm trying to actually finish this quickly so I can save a little bit of time later on and come back to the flight control stack. Because essentially I need to fix that one motor wire and fix it so it goes over it. This is a pre-production frame, so it's a little snug. There we go. And as this frame, you can see, has a little slot for the XT60 already built into it, along with a slot for your flight control USB slot. Let's see, can you get it in there right? Can you see it? Yep. So that is that. And now we need to essentially get this prepped. So the first part of our FPV camera setup is going to be attaching the camera's bracket to this plate. There's a forward and back with the bracket, so make sure you put it on the right way. Included are 2 bolts and 2 lock nuts that fit right onto the FPV pod. And realistically, you don't have to get these too tight, as they should not really fall off. It's nylon hardware. There's not a lot of pressure on this top plate. Might need to get a screw or a driver to get that in though. There we go. So if anyone in chat wants to help me out with this problem and look up the connectors that I need to remap the ESC, that'd be great. If not, no worries. Now that we have that bolt in, we're going to add another nylon lock nut to the bottom of this to secure the hardware in place. And with that, we'll have the camera bracket attached to the frame. Right on. So now that we have the camera bracket attached to our frame, we're going to attach the camera to the camera bracket with the included screws. And you don't have to put a lot of pressure on these. I actually recommend that you don't. The less pressure you have on these screws, the better in general. You don't want them to strip out, and it's easier to move the camera with your hand than having to retighten everything to make it work right. Yeah, no, I know resource motor A1, but what I'm asking is where on the board itself do I need to go to, Josh? Do I need to move it to, like, where on the pinout on the board? And yeah, if you're keeping it in two pieces, we could add a servo connector to allow you to just take the FPV pod off. Right now, I'm not going to be doing that on this, just because I actually don't have an extra servo connector with me. Yeah, so now that we have the camera attached to our frame, as you can see, that was pretty simple. We're going to attach the VTX to the camera pod. So the first thing we're going to do is essentially attach this, which is just going to push into place with some pressure. And this top plate has a bunch of holes put into it. And we're going to line up these holes with one of the with the button on the VTX, so we can change the settings without having to open up the canopy. And then we're going to use a single zip tie to actually hold the VTX in place. So now we got to find the hole. Where are you, my friend? There we go. So found the hole. Now we're going to add the zip tie. Pop it in from the bottom so we don't have the nub on the outside. And this is the delicateness. This is where it takes just a little finagling to get it in its home. But once it's in its home, it won't be moving around. And we'll have a secure connection, and we won't have to worry about it breaking off. So line up that hole again, and cinch down our zip tie. Cool, and if we did it right, our hole should line up with our pin on the board so we can hit the button, in theory. Takes a little bit of finagling and finesse. But once you get it lined up, then you cinch it all the way down. And again, you might have to finagle it into place a little bit. That word, finagle. Finagle. You're gonna have to finagle it into place. Hey, Flightbox, thanks for subscribing. Right on, so now that it is now actually stuck down in place and doesn't want to move, I'm just going to line up that hole, and blam. It's hard to see, but our little hole is now lined up with the pen, so we can change the VTX settings without having to open up our canopy, which is pretty right on. Okay, now we're going to cut off the end of our, yep, just like that. We are good. Zip tie is good. The positioning, again, just double checking is good. Now we have the VTX secured to the top plate. We're going to add in the VTX's power harness, which we probably should have done before we attached it, but is not a big deal. I say that, but do as I say, not as I do. Okay, that's easy. We're going to run these wires up to the camera. This should just plug right into the camera. We shouldn't have to change out these pins. I'm just verify this real quick. Let's see. We have video, ground, power, signal, or audio. Ground, or power, ground, video, audio. So we're going to have to change the pins on this. And to do that, should take just a moment. So we need power, ground, video, audio. So we're going to pop out all of these little connectors very carefully by not breaking off the connectors. You can't break them off. You just have to gently nudge them out, up. And as you nudge them up, they should pop right out. And again, you've got to be delicate because you can easily break off these little connectors. And once you break them off, you can't really get them back on. You ruin the whole connector. Silence, it's deafening. I was going to have music on the stream, but it's kind of hard to use music on YouTube's without something being copyrighted, even if it's just part of a song. Okay, almost. Yeah, come on now. There we go. And it fell and it's gone. It disappeared into the camouflage that is my bench. Oh dear. Where in the world is Waldo? There it is. Okay, so now that we have that free, we're going to put these connectors in their proper order. So when we plug it in, it's all going into the right place. So I want to say that the top is like that. Yep. So there's a top and bottom. Make sure you get the top and bottom right. These little connectors have a little kind of nub on the top of them that allows it to lock into place into the connector. So you're going to need to have 5 volt on the outside of that little nub. It's the right one. So 5 volt. Then we're going to do ground. Right along we have 5 volt ground, then we have video and then audio. Yep. Put video in. This is a bit tedious and whatnot, but it beats actually having to resolder any wiring, so your harness is going to be super clean. You're not going to have any connection breaks between your VTX and your camera, and this is actually, I prefer this than having to resolder a bunch of wiring, to be honest. So. Well, I just put them all in upside down. As like 3 people like, Zoe, you idiot, you just did it upside down. Why'd you do that? Because I looked at it wrong. And the second time you take them out, you have to be extra special careful because that can be a problem. And the pressure is on to not screw this up. It's live streaming. I'm doing it in front of a live audience. You're going to see me screw up just as I do it and screw up. And then you're going to have to watch me fix my mistakes live. The great thing is I still have plenty of time. Still have half an hour to finish up the build from my planned time. And quite honestly, that's a lot better than I thought. Yeah, it's the DYS F4 V2 Pro. See, A06 is the free pad if it's the DYS F4 Pro. Let me see if I can find that pad. A06. So I'll go through this in a second with you guys after the whole thing. Because I could actually use some help after the whole build video is done to pinpoint the problem and get this fixed efficiently and quickly. So again, we're going to pop these in, but again, we're going to do it in reverse. So I had the connector actually, it's weird, it mounts upside down, so it plugs into the camera upside down. again, what is with all these non-universal mounting systems? Like, the power's on the outside, the whole connector is flipped upside down. Like, it just does not make sense. Dear industry, get your stuff together. Start standardizing and stop recreating the wheel, please. Please. I'm tired of having to figure out everyone's pinouts and because everyone does them differently. Okay, now should be able to just plug that into our camera. Bam. And there we have our connections right on. So that was a little more difficult than it should have been. Actually, let me see if I have a pigtail connector for this so I can disconnect it. Because I would like to be able to pop that off if I could. Should I take a second? I'm pulling out my big box of stuffs. Because I think I've got a, yep. Let's see. Yep, have the piece here. So actually we're going to have a pigtail on this thing so we can disconnect the video from the mainframe, which will make it a lot easier to work on. Cool, so let us continue with the build. So now I need to cut this off and tin this wire and get it going. So this is going to be attached to our battery lead, and then this is going to have full voltage into the VTX. And the idea behind that is that instead of using the 9 volts coming off the flight controller, if the power regulator on the flight controller blows, at least we'll still have video. And that way, if something does happen, like it browns out or if the flight controller goes bad, it's a lot easier to diagnose what's going on. And there's less work for the flight controller reg to make the voltage clean and smooth. So that's why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. And yep, I'm gonna just tin up these wires real quick like. And then we're going to solder them to the battery leads directly. Because again, the Unify HV Pro has power filtering. If you do not have power filtering on your VTX, you can pull 5 volts off of the pads from the receiver, and if you don't want to use these pads, you can pull 9 volts off the pads on the other side, which is really handy for any kind of configuration that you want to set up. But personally, I like running with high voltage VTXs and having them go straight to the battery. Okay. I need more solder and I need more heat. Let's turn it up. Also, I'm trying to connect them to very saturated pads. Like, there's a lot of solder on these pads already. I guess that's good enough. Yeah, no, that's good. That's a good connection. Not pulling a lot of amperage through this connection, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Then we just have to attach our ground wire. Yeah, the connection's kind of cold. I'm going to want to make sure that you don't have a cold solder joint when you do this, because heating up these solder joints takes a lot of energy out of the soldering iron, and generally what happens is you'll heat up the top of it, but you won't actually make it go into the rest of the solder joint, and you'll just have a cold solder. And that can lead to having a bad day. What is going on with this pad? There we go. Just kind of doing due diligence. I want to make sure that the solder joints are good and I'm not going to have to deal with bad solder joints. And then I'm going to twist up the connections, which should give it a little bit more strength and kind of alleviate the load over both of those connections versus each of those connections having stress on them. And again, we have like a giant mess of wires here. This is all going to be, you know, squished together. This is okay. You're not going to see any of this wiring. So now that we have that together, we have our connection for our VTX and camera power. We are now connected to that. So at any point in time we take this build apart in the future, we can literally just take it apart or not. Take it apart like that. Makes it super easy to work on and makes things a lot easier to deal with. I'm glad the connection stays put. Cool, so now let's add an antenna to the back of our thing. So this has a slot cut out for you and a couple of extra holes on the sides here. These holes are for zip ties, essentially. And the idea of the zip ties there is it's going to secure the antenna to the frame and alleviate any stress on that soldered or on this joint. Yeah, so the whole idea of the zip ties, as you'll see in a second, should make this thing bulletproof. And no, the frame is not actually bulletproof. I wish. Let's add the zip ties on the inside. So we're going to do 2 zip ties, essentially. It's going to countersink it, or kind of countersink it, yeah, to each side of it. And it's going to pull the antenna essentially in 2 directions at once, adding tension to it. Okay, that's one connection. And a second one. Yay. So now that we have that countersunk, the antenna is completely kind of isolated from the VTX. So this can hit and it's not going to break away or do anything stupid like that. So we can abuse the heck out of our antenna now without having to worry about it. So we're just going to cut these off. And like that, we have our top part all done. Let's attach it to our main frame. And the canopy, or this top plate, should slide right over the standoffs and onto the frame. Bam. Sexiness. Okay, so now that we have that part done, we're going to add our side plates. So these are extra thick Rotor Riot side plates. The originals on the WBX are a little bit more thin and a little less material on them. So these take a lot of abuse when you're flying and essentially keeps your frame from ever being destroyed. Like, I challenge people to try to break this thing. So we're going to add a screw. And we're almost done. So in the configuration video, we're going to bind it up and get this thing going. And that's going to be its own process. For now, we're just essentially building the machine and getting it functionally together. And why is that not going in? So in just about an hour and a half, we've gone from a pile of parts to a completed airframe, which I think is pretty damn cool. Is it fixed now? Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's add in one of these other screws. These ones are kind of hard because they go in at an angle and there's no slots on the top. I'm assuming the frame creator is going to add some slots to make this go together a little bit better. And by slots, I mean on the original WBX, there are little holes for your driver to go down so you can secure these to the frame a little bit easier. That's one side plate on. Get this other one going. Once you start getting them on, it goes good because essentially you're having a driving bolt going down through this thing, through the top plate, and into the main standoff. So you have a bolt that's driving through two different things at once, and that takes a bit of force. And essentially because with these bolts, there's not a lot of extra thread on them, so you really have to kind of get at it, so to speak, to get them in there. Yes, the board does have a mini 8-pin header for 4-in-1 ESCs. Oh! There you go. Thank you, Josh. I think I know how I might be able to make this work now. I'll just solder it to the pin out for the 4-in-1 ESC board that's underneath the board. Bam, that's gonna be a win. Okay, one last screw. This thing is about done, less than 2 hours. Or about 6 to 7 hours if you count the other stream where I went through all the prep and soldered everything. But as far as actually going through the whole thing, it's not too bad. An hour and a half? That's pretty good. Sweet! Look at that! Oh yeah, baby. Oh yeah, so we have completed the build of the Rotor Riot WBX from RaGGe. This has been one of my favorite builds so far. A lot of amazing components are on this thing, and it looks so sexy. Oh yeah, that's the first completed prototype, everybody. Yep, you're seeing it live right here. So the final version of this frame might be black and then white, so it might have the color flip. But quite honestly, I think this looks really good. I mean, this is pretty cool looking. Yeah, so one last thing we're going to do on this build before we call it completely done, and that is figuring out if we're going to add any protection to the ESCs or secure them in any way. You could just leave them free floating, like they're not going to wiggle around too much, but that's in bad taste. So I'm going to show you what I did with the other RaGGe WBX build, and what I do with basically all of my builds, and that is self-adhesive tape. So on the other RaGGe WBX, I put some self-adhesive around the entire arm and ESC. And it's a little bit rubbery, so when you end up hitting stuff, it actually absorbs the hit. I love this stuff. I know Colby uses it on his quads, and it's really cool because you can still see through it. So we're going to cut off a section of that. And again, so this stuff sticks to just itself. It does not stick to anything else. And it's really nice because you can do things like stick it to something and then remove it easily, and it doesn't leave residue on anything, so you don't have a bunch of sticky stuff left behind. And just like that, we have one ESC done. This is just like extra preventive measures to make sure we don't hurt our machine. You know, it's good to do stuff like this because if you do crash, you know, it reduces the risk of any electronics getting hurt. And it makes it a little more nice to hold on to if you are like handling it. But yeah, it's 2 down. Let me just cut 2 pieces of this real quick. Okay, 1 left to go. And again, this is just really going to protect the ESCs in case of a crash, and still allow us to have the motor pads exposed so we can swap the motors without having to remove this, which is really nice. Like if you do break a motor, you won't have to disassemble the frame to get to the motor. Right on, so that is the clearness. You can still see through it. It doesn't look that bad on camera. And our ESCs are now nice and safely protected. Cool, so this is done. I want to say thank you for watching through this much of the stream. If you are building one of these, thank you for supporting Rotor Riot, and thank you for supporting the RaGGe frame creator and the WBX. Like, this is one of my favorite machines. I'm really excited to be able to share it with the world and to show you one of my most favorite things. It might not be the world's fastest machines, it might not be the most 3D-able machine, but as far as durability goes and just a peace of mind when flying it, it's really hard to beat a RaGGe WBX. So thank you for watching. Hopefully you found this stream helpful. If you're watching live, I'll be right back after the cut. And if you're not watching live, please leave a like, comment, anything you need a question on, please let me know. I'm happy to help. If you liked this video, leave a like, subscribe to my channel, check out my Patreon. I'm on Airviews. I post videos there fairly early, so if you want to see some exclusive content that you have not seen on my YouTubes yet, that's a place to check it out. And I wanted to just say thank you to all of you that do support me and help me do stuff like this. I mean, I would still do a lot of the stuff even if none of you are watching, but having your support and having you there to be a part of the process really makes this something special. And really, I don't know, it's really, really cool. So I just want to say thank you for watching and thank you for being a part of this. And until next time, I've been Zoe FPV, and you have been watching The Bench Live Builds, RaGGe WBX Rotor Riot Edition.
Follow social media, see the world from a brand new perspective. That's subjective. Flying drones, building every paradise, creating new things, blowing things on Zoe. Flying drones, building every paradise, creating new things, blowing things on Zoe. Flying drones.
Well then, if you want to support more content like this from the Flying Wookiee, please leave a like, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, follow my videos on Airviews, become my patron on Patreon, join the conversation on Discord, and as always, I've been Zoe FPV. Thank you for watching. Tune in next time. And I'm back, everybody. Thank you for sticking with me through that little break. I was just double checking to see if I had essentially access to the live stream. So thank you for sticking with me through that. I'm going to turn chat back on so I can hear you all. One moment. 1 moment. Where are you, chat thingy? Oh, wait, I have that here. I don't need that here. I have it there. Speed chat, I'm turning you back on. I am currently... There we go. Enable speech. Wait. Okay, now chat should work so I can talk to you all. Woo!
Billy D FPV said,
Hey, Billy D.
Hey Zoe. Just got here.
Welcome to the chat room. Things are going to be a little slow right now.
Said, Billy D FPV just subscribed to this channel.
Oh, thanks for subscribing. Yeah, I'm taking a quick break. Things are going to be a little slow for the next 10 minutes. The build video was scheduled to go until 3 o'clock. We got through that really quickly. Yeah, there was one problem, but as Josh in the chat pointed out, I should be able to remap that motor, essentially not even having to remap it, just by soldering it onto the pinout for the 4-in-1 ESC that's already on the board. So that should be a quick, like, 5-second fix. And I'll do that when I'm binding it up in the configuration video. But yeah, actually I might end up taking this apart and getting it prepped for that video, and then have that all ready and then start the configuration video. Right now I'm currently looking at my computers and I'm having a problem right now because I wanted to save that last stream, and the whole idea was it was going to be live recorded to my computer, so when I was done recording I could essentially just take it off of the backup and upload it to YouTube, so it's not part of the 24-hour stream, but its own little show. Unfortunately, it looks like my hard drive filled up halfway through, so I'm not sure if I have it or not. So that's a thing. So that was the thing that I have to deal with right now. So I'm dealing with that now. Feel free to ask me questions. Feel free to start using the chats. I know a lot of you probably just had this open in a different window, but now I can hear you all, so yeah. Does it open at least? I'm seeing if I can open a file. Nope, can't play the file. Unsupported content. Drats. Okay, so that means
Square FPV
it lives on the internet
said,
now.
Sad to hear you might have lost your video.
So I think the video, okay, so YouTube still has it in the buffer. So essentially it's still there, right?
Billy DFPV said, always sucks losing footage.
The biggest thing I gotta do now is figure out if YouTube is going to overwrite that 4 hours of footage when I get to the 4-hour mark on stream, or if it's going to like archive that bit of footage. So I'm looking up right now. I'm currently kind of, not frantically, but I am kind of almost frantically trying to get this figured out. Because that's realistically the only part of the stream that I wanted to save was that part.
Said, Anush. ZBOT. Said, Griffith Pickett just subscribed to this channel.
Hey, thanks for subscribing. That's awesome. Okay, so I am currently looking for YouTube longer than 4 hours on stream. I think there's a reason why you end the stream before 4 hours is up. And I really need to archive the video. So what I might end up doing is jumping off the stream and then starting up a new one, essentially. And that way it'll archive what I wanted to archive and keep the rest of it going. And then I can go back later, rip the video off of YouTube, cut the ends out of it, and re-upload that video. One way or another, it's still there. It's in the internet.
Square FPV said, sounds good.
Okay, so, I'm reading right now the YouTube things about streaming more than 4 hours.
R. Taylor said, will you do a video showing your stick work as you fly?
Yeah, actually there's a 3D versus 2D video already on my channel that shows a bit of the difference. It's kind of old, and it's not the best 3D work that I've done, but I will be doing some streaming of Liftoff later, and you can see what I'm doing on the sticks with that setup, so you'll be able to see what I'm doing as I'm doing it, which should be pretty cool.
L. Root said,
Billy DFPV said, how much of a mindset shift is it to go into 3D flying?
That's a little bit of a shift. I mean, the biggest thing is just getting used to being upside down. As human beings, we're naturally wired to think and live upright. So getting comfortable with being upside down and then getting used to maneuvering upside down is more of a mental challenge than anything. Some people pick it up a lot quicker than others, but it can definitely take some time. So it looks like as long as the stream is ended and I end the stream, it'll archive. But I don't want to necessarily end the stream right now. So I'm just debating if there's any other options to me or if that's it. Actually, see, I already stopped the stream once and then I started streaming again. I'm wondering if my channel picked it up independently. So what's supposed to happen is when I stop the stream, YouTube is supposed to unlist the video and put it as an unlisted
Square
video on my
FPV
channel.
Said, go back and do a screen record.
Pretty much. But I need to double check that YouTube is going to keep streaming the thingy and doing the thing that's supposed to do. let's see. I'm getting really, really quiet because I'm getting kind of anxious now. I'm like, oh God, I screwed it all up. Everything's broken. No, what have I done? What have I done? Where are you?
Said, OBS lets you allow record video, right?
Yeah, no, and I was recording the video, but my hard drive filled up.
It might take a few hours for YouTube to process a live stream into a video.
Yeah, that's also true, huh? It would take some time to process it. And then it broke.
Elwood
so
said, ending the stream should archive it, but don't take my word for it. Smiling face with open mouth.
Yeah, no, ending the stream will archive it. I'm just debating, like, how do I end the stream and get another one going? It's like, I want to schedule, like... Okay, then. I am going to take the risk and...
Smiling face with open mouth.
Yeah, I'm gonna end the stream. I know it'll buffer. Like, I have an hour to do it. So if you're all watching now, go onto my YouTube channel, and the stream will start again. You'll probably get a notification.
FPV said, schedule a live and set it for 3 minutes.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll give myself a bit of a break, and this way the stream will be archived, and I can go in later and get just what I need.
Josh said,
thank you all for the help.
right now, I can see the beginning of your stream on another device. Elwood said, if you end the stream you will lose these viewers and have to restart a new stream.
That's fine.
IRCYT doesn't allow you to disconnect and reconnect to the same stream.